You don't lack ambition. You just don't act on it. You think about your future a lot. A better version of your life, more freedom, more control, more clarity. And in those moments, it feels real, almost close. But then the day ends, and nothing actually changes. And slowly, a quiet question starts to form. If I want this so badly, why am I not doing anything about it? Most people answer this too quickly. They call it laziness, lack of discipline, lack of motivation. But psychology suggests something deeper, something much quieter. Sometimes we get stuck not because we don't care, but because thinking starts to feel like progress. When you imagine your goals, your brain gives you a small reward, a sense of movement, a feeling that you're on your way. And without realizing it, that feeling can replace real action. Not completely, just enough to delay it. So you plan, you think, you prepare, and it feels productive. But your reality stays the same. And here's the part most people don't notice. The problem isn't that you're doing nothing, it's that you're slowly getting comfortable doing nothing. Not fully comfortable, just enough to stay where you are. And that's a difficult place to recognize because it doesn't feel like failure. It just feels like waiting. Waiting for clarity, waiting for energy, waiting for the right moment. But the right moment has a pattern. It never arrives. Because readiness isn't something you find. I find it's something that builds after you start. But starting changes something important. It makes things real. And real things are uncertain, messy, imperfect. Which brings us to something deeper. Sometimes it's not action we're avoiding, it's what action might reveal. Because as long as your goals stay in your mind, they stay safe. They don't get tested, they don't fail, they don't challenge how you see yourself. But the moment you take a real step, you risk finding out something uncomfortable. Maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe it's harder than you thought. Maybe it won't work the way you imagined. And for many people, that uncertainty feels heavier than staying stuck. So they stay in a quieter space, a safer one, thinking, planning, imagining, but not moving. And over time, this creates a subtle shift. You start noticing a pattern. You tell yourself you'll do something, and then you don't. Not once, but repeatedly. And slowly, your trust in yourself begins to fade. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly. Until one day you hesitate, not because you can't act, but because you're no longer sure you will. And that's where it becomes more than a habit. It becomes part of your identity. Someone who thinks, but doesn't follow through. And that realization can feel heavier than the problem itself. But here's the important part. This pattern doesn't break with pressure or sudden motivation. It breaks with something much simpler. A small, real action. Not a big decision, not a complete life change, just one step that moves you slightly out of your thoughts and into reality. Because action does something thinking never can. It gives you feedback, clarity, momentum, and most importantly, it
Rebuilds trust. Not all at once, but slowly. So the next time you catch yourself thinking about changing your life, pause and ask yourself, am I actually moving forward or just feeling like I am? There's no pressure in that question, no judgment, just awareness. And sometimes, awareness is the moment everything begins to shift. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. Because in the end, most people don't stay stuck because they can't move forward. They stay stuck because they stay in a place that feels almost like progress.